Good morning and welcome to video number 40 of me growing out my beard. Here on EMCProductions I try to be a very positive influence for the drumming community, but not in this video. Today I'm going to be a big, fat,
negative Nazi.
Because while I love drumming, it is one of my favorite things to do in the world, there are still some things that come about in the drumming world that are very annoying. And today we're going to talk about all of those annoying things, and we're going to call out some percussion composers and hopefully make a difference in the future. But before we get into it, make sure that you click that subscribe button, ring that Liberty Bell, and click that like button. Today is the very last day to enter EMC Marching Madness 2022. If you're interested in participating and winning a Mapex marching snare drum, then you'll have to get on it real fast. Link is in the description if you want to enter. Also, we're only like 300 subscribers away from hitting 200,000, and that might actually happen before this video is published. But I'll be doing that epic fan collab video like I promised that I would do when I hit that number. Okay, let's go deal with our problems. This is one of the worst things you can see as a percussionist. So sometimes composers might think that there will be no percussion parts whatsoever that will enhance their composition for like hundreds and hundreds of measures. And well, that's their opinion, and their opinion is wrong. But even if you're gonna do that, can we please get some cues in there? Some little visual reminders of what is happening in the composition. Because no one likes seeing just this big number of rests and then you gotta count it all and come in on time. It's not gonna happen. Percussionists have very short attention spans, okay? You can't expect us to count through all this. Something that's even worse than having those huge numbers of rest is this thing. Tacit Jusqua. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Yeah, this was when I was in orchestra in college. I don't remember the name of the piece. If anyone knows what piece this is, please compose that in the comments. I would love to call it out. So yeah, basically the composer just decided to put that in instead of writing out all the rests or any cues. And then at like measure 300, he just wrote out one single cue and then the percussion part. And I don't know why the heck anyone would write this, okay? It was impossible to figure out where we were in the music when that cue came in and then play the parts. Like, I don't know if they were thinking that might like save trees from being cut down using less paper to write the rest out. This thing only took up like a quarter of the page. Like, you could have put the rest in at the beginning. Like, it would have made no difference. And every single rehearsal, the percussion section, we just wouldn't play these parts because we have no idea when they were about to come in. Like, we would try so hard to figure out what this cue was, and we could never do it. So at the dress rehearsal, we actually asked the conductor if he could just give us a cue, like right before this part was gonna happen, and he agreed that he would. So then we're at the concert, we're doing the thing, and he forgot to cue us. So we didn't play, and the world is a much worse place because of it. Okay, moving on to the marching arts. Drill spacing for drumline. This is something that annoys the crap out of me. So when you're marching around a field, you're trying to play with other people around you. The further the people are away from you, the harder it is to play with them. The best intervals to write for tenor drums and bass drums are 3-step intervals, which means you'll have one guy on the yard line, another guy 3 steps off, the next guy will be 2 steps off, and the next guy will be 1 step on the other side of the yard line. And for snare, I like 2-step intervals, which is even closer together because the drums are not very big. Yeah, there have been so many times where we're learning the drill and we just condense it down to that because the drill writer just wrote us at 4-step intervals for like the whole show, or even bigger, which is even worse. And I get it, you know, sometimes you gotta spread out a little bit to make the form complete. That makes sense, but when you're just like floating around the back of the field and it's kind of arbitrary what interval you're at, you could just write 3-step, okay? It's fine. Let's talk about the stock drumline parts, as in marching band music that was written by someone who's not a drummer most likely, and they just write some basic parts for the drumline for the whole show. And these shows might be sold on a website that has not been updated since the 70s or 80s, so these parts have been like that for decades. And when I'm watching a marching band show, I can easily tell if this was just a stock drumline part or if like they actually hired an arranger to write good parts for the drumline. And unfortunately, there are a lot of music programs out there that can't hire a drumline arranger due to budget concerns. So this is more of a call out to the publishing company for keeping these stock parts in. The worst things I see are tenor drums that are written for no spocks, like these little drums in the middle. Yeah, those weren't around in like the 70s and 80s. That's like sort of a new phenomenon. And sometimes there'll be a lot of pushes in the tenor drum writing, like this kind of part. This works perfectly on a set of toms. But this will not work on the marching tenor drums, okay? The drums are set up in a different configuration. Also, the bass drum splits are almost always for 4 bass drums, and that's it. That's all you get. And depending on the size of the school and how many kids are in the percussion section, you might have 3 bass drums or 5 bass drums, sometimes even 6 bass drums. So yeah, if you're running a publishing company that is still selling stock drumline parts with your arrangements, I would highly suggest that you go back and revise it for sets of 5 tenor drums and also sets of 3, 4, 5, and 6 marching bass drums. And also make sure that the tenor rounds make some kind of sense, please. Everyone look at this measure right now. Look at it closely. Can you tell what is wrong with this? Yes, a roll leading into a grace note. This makes no sense, and I've seen it so many times. Right, when you're doing a drum roll, that just leads up into the release of it, so you can't put ornaments at the beginning of it. What you actually have to play is a roll that has rest at the end, and then you start that next rudiment. And I never think this sounds good. Like, I don't understand why people want that, alright? Just have the roll go to the notes, and that's all you need. A lot of drum set players probably know about the struggle with the house kit. The standard complaint is that you get to the gig and they tell you that they have a great drum set, and then you get there and it's a piece of crap, and you sound like crap because the drums are a piece of crap. So it's usually recommended to at least bring your own cymbals and probably a bass drum pedal, and just hope that the drums, you can at least tune them to make them sound okay. Almost all of the gigs that I've done on drum set, I've brought my own like complete drum set because the house didn't have one. There was one time where the house did have a drum set and they didn't tell me that. So I packed all my drums into the car, got to the gig, schlepped all this stuff up the stairs, and there's a drum set there. And it was actually a pretty nice drum set, so I didn't need to bring any of that crap. Serious first world problems here. The timpani is probably the most widely used percussion instrument in any kind of setting. So for those who are not familiar, the timpani is like a large kettle drum, and you use the foot pedals to tune the notes, so it like stretches the head up and down to make the pitch higher or lower. And this instrument is normally used to support the
low-end sound of the ensemble,
but it can change what note it is playing, so you can double if like the tubas or the contrabasses are changing notes. Now the thing is, this is mostly in wind ensemble. I've had a lot of pieces that just have way too much timpani tuning throughout the piece. Like I'm just constantly moving around the drums the whole time, just scrambling to tune to the next note. So sometimes composers are super nice and they write in the tuning changes during the sheet music, and that's really helpful. And other times they don't, and those are the times that it might be way too much of it. There needs to be a law passed for this, okay? All composers must write in tuning changes for the timpani. I've also experienced quite a lot of impossible timpani tuning changes, like sometimes you need to change the tuning of 3 different drums all at the same time, which is, you know, not possible unless you have an extra leg, or if your PP is that long to reach the floor. And it is also not possible to tune drum number 1 and drum number 4 at the same time, unless you're like an Olympic gymnast who can do a complete split. Drummers like to play loud, okay? It's in our nature. But sometimes the instrument we're playing on cannot get as loud as some composers might think it can. An instrument such as the marimba, if the full ensemble is playing at fortissimo, and the marimba has a part at fortissimo, you're not going to hear that crap, alright? It's not a loud instrument. The exception is for marching band or DCI, where you mic the front ensemble. Then you'll hear it, because, well, it's mic'd. You can make it as loud as you want. But yeah, in concert band or an orchestra, you're not going to hear it, alright? It's going to get lost in the sauce. And same thing goes with vibraphone, unless you use ridiculously hard mallets on it, which is not very good to do that too often. There was one part I had in a college wind ensemble. Again, I don't remember the name of the piece. Okay, I think I just like blocked all this stuff out of my memory, but if anyone knows what I'm talking about, please post that in the comments. The dobachi, or however you pronounce that. There was a part for this at fortissimo with big ensemble hits at the same time as these notes. Now, I didn't know what the heck a dobachi even is, so I went to my professor and asked him, and he happened to have one. So it's basically like this little bowl that you strike with a rubber mallet. Although this picture I found on Google Image has a really big bowl, but I don't know where you would even get that at. So the thing is, this instrument is not loud, like at all. So I decided to go with a very interesting technique. I call it visual loudness. I just held the bowl up really high in the air and acted like I was playing it insanely loud. Because if it looks like it's loud, then it'll be perceived as loud. Ah, psychology. And I remember after that concert, a bunch of people came up to me and said they liked the way I played that, and they wanted to hear it up close, and it was kind of interesting. Also, my professor said that that was one of the stupidest parts he's ever seen written, so yeah, not my fault, it was the music. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is instrument switching in a concert percussion setting. It is very common for percussion parts to have multiple instruments throughout the piece. Like you might start on a xylophone, then you play a couple of woodblock notes, some suspended cymbal notes, and then go back to the xylophone, something like that. And there might be a few logistical things to work out, like you want a woodblock like on a music stand right next to you want a suspended cymbal right next to you, and then you got your xylophone in the front. That works out fine. But sometimes the logistics are impossible. Like you'll have 5 percussionists all at the same time having to switch instruments, like moving across the stage. And then everyone's like bumping into each other and losing their place in the music. It's always a struggle. I remember there was this one time where I was playing a marimba part, and then I had a bunch of rest, and then somebody else came over and had a marimba part. They left to play something else, and then I had another marimba part. It's like, what? What is happening? Who wrote this crap? So yeah, just a memo to composers: when you're writing for percussion, try to have as minimal switching around on instruments as possible. There's usually going to be some is fine, but a crap ton is not good. Although honestly, it is kind of fun when you're like running around trying to get to new instruments, right? You get to box people out to get on that instrument. I can throw my music over top of their music if they didn't move out of the way fast enough and they get lost. And I get to show off my athletic abilities by sprinting across the stage when I have just one measure to switch instruments. That's always fun. Okay, that's enough complaining for one video. Compose a comment below if you have any experience with annoying percussion logistical issues. If you would like to hear more Negative Nancy style videos, I did one where I reacted to the world's worst marching bands. I also did one where I reacted to the world's worst I&E solo. Or if you want to see me fix logistical issues, I have a whole series on fixing bad percussion writing. But before you go, make sure that you click that subscribe button, ring that Liberty Bell, and click that like button. Thank you to everyone who supports me on Patreon. If you are able to, please consider going over there to make a donation. It will help the channel out a whole lot. And also consider buying a custom t-shirt, such as this one. I will leave the link for that in the description. And have a good morning.